Preparing live stream for the meeting. We are up.
Okay.
Well, it's the circle's running. There we go. Okay. All right. I don't have the echo today that I had yesterday. And all right. All right, we are now live streaming, and I will start the recording. And as soon as Jamie pops back in, we'll be ready to go. And Linda. There we go. All right. Thank you, everybody. We're set, Sarah.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sarah Peets, and I serve on the Nebraska Arts Council Board of Directors, and I am chairing this Arts Project Grant Review Committee meeting today. I am actually live in Lincoln, Nebraska. I have served on the Nebraska Arts Council Board for a few years, and this panel, I'm looking forward to this panel discussion, which will determine funding for the grants being reviewed today. Those funding recommendations will then be taken to the Nebraska Arts Council Board at their next meeting in early June. So I would like to start with introductions. And first of all, I will introduce our review panel, and I'll start with Katrina Adams. And Katrina, would you please tell us a little bit about yourself? And Katrina, I think you're on mute.
Rookie mistake. Sorry about that. Good morning, everyone. I am Katrina Adams. I'm a program manager at the Omaha Community Foundation, where I manage the resident-led grant making programs, including that really focus on participatory grant making. I'm a mom and a lifelong Omaha resident, and I'm really looking forward to this panel discussion today.
Thank you very much, Katrina. And next panelist is Linda Hillier. Linda, would you please tell us about yourself?
Yes, good morning. My name is Linda Hillier, and I'm the grants manager at the Omaha Symphony. Previously, I was at the Nebraska Arts Council for a few years and worked on accessibility and education grants. And I am also a working artist myself and the president of BFF Omaha, which is a nonprofit in the Benson neighborhood here in Omaha, who runs the First Fridays. And I am very excited to be a part of this panel today.
Thank you, Linda. And next we have Susan Trinkle-Tamayo. Susan, please introduce yourself to us.
Good morning, I'm Susan Trinkle-Tamayo. I'm the Dean of Humanities and the Arts at Metropolitan Community College in Omaha, Nebraska. I have taught art history for over 20 years and have been involved in lots of organizations where I've done some grant writing. So I'm really excited to be here and include what I know to the panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. And our final panelist is Jamie Ulmer. Please tell us about yourself, Jamie.
Hi, good morning. My name is Jamie Ulmer. I'm the managing artistic director at Community Players, which is the community theater down in Beatrice, where I'm coming up on my 25th anniversary down here. And I'm also a member of the board of directors for Nebraskans for the Arts. I'm vice president for legislative affairs there. So that's me.
Great. Thank you very much, Jamie. Thanks to all the panelists. And I'd also like to introduce the staff with us today. First of all, we have Josh Brown, who is the program coordinator and will be assisting with technical issues and running the technology. Thank you, Josh. We have Jennifer Drabelbus, who is managing scoring in the online grant system and is our grants administrator. And we have Stephanie Plummer, who's a program coordinator and is taking minutes. And we also have Ann Alston, who is a program specialist with us today. Our deputy director, Mike Markey, you have heard from, and Rachel Morgan, program specialist, is helping run things very smoothly today and providing us with information on the grant applicants. And finally, we have Suzanne Weiss, the executive director of the Nebraska Arts Council. And I'd like to turn it over to Suzanne for some opening comments.
Thank you, Sarah, and welcome to all of you that are watching and listening in cyberspace. We're happy that you're here. And in a few minutes, you're going to learn about what the process is. But in the meantime, just remind you, this is your state tax dollars at work. So we make this a completely open process. So you'll be able to hear the comments on your application. And of course, you will be getting written comments as well, based on what is being said today. It's really critical that you maintain a relationship with your elected officials, particularly in the state legislature, because they are the ones that determine our budget and by extension, what we have available to provide to you in the form of grants. So never forget them, invite them to your wonderful events that you all do, and also write them thank you notes, which is again part of our process as well. So we encourage you to maintain as close a relationship with them as you can. So good luck today, and I'll turn it back over to Sarah.
Thank you, Suzanne. And I'll just remind you, when we get started, we will start each application with having the program manager, Rachel, give us an introduction to the application, followed by I will call on the primary and secondary reviewers to provide their comments, and then I will ask for any additional comments from the other reviewers. And finally, I will ask all of the panelists to complete their scores, which you should be able to do very briefly if you want, before we move on to the next application, and give me some kind of sign, a thumbs up, when you are ready to move on to the next application. So we will get started. Our first application.
Hey, Sarah?
Yes.
Can I real quickly explain how the process will work for them?
Yes. I apologize, Mike. Thank you.
No problem. First of all, along the lines of what Suzanne was talking about, the value of this, if you haven't already, please take a moment to register that you're attending this grant review session. There should be a link wherever you came in, whether it was during YouTube or Facebook or via our website. There should be a link there that will take you to a place where you can let us know who you are, who you're with, and where you are, so that we can show that these sessions are very valuable, because people from all over the state can tune in rather than have to come to our offices. So that's first. Thanks. I would like to remind the panelists that even though they can't see our friends there in the live stream, that they can see you. So you'll always be on camera until we take a break. We'll take breaks about once every hour so that people can do the things that they need to do. And finally, then, while we take a break, I'll just remind the panelists, go ahead and shut off your cameras and your microphones so that we don't hear you feeding your dog, that sort of thing. All right, now, as for the panel process, panelists have received and have read all of the applications in advance. Each application has been assigned a primary and a secondary reviewer. Applications will be discussed and then individually scored by each panelist according to the published NAC criteria for this category that you can find on our website. The panelist scores will then be averaged, and the applications will be ranked according to that averaged score from highest to lowest. Panelists will then review that ranking, and they will determine which of the applications merit funding based upon those scores. Okay? A mathematical formula will later be applied to determine the actual grant amounts approved for the applications. The award calculations will be based upon that average score for each application and the available funds for this category. Higher ranking applications will receive a greater percentage of their request. Finally, NAC staff, in this case, Rachel Morgan, who is always there to help you during your applications and will be there after we're done, is not going to be heard from today unless there's some question about process, procedure, criteria, anything like that. Otherwise, Rachel will stay in the background so that the work of the panelists is what's of importance here. Okay. I think that's it. Sarah, I give it back to you now.
Okay, thanks so much, Mike. Now we will dive into the applications, and the first application on deck is from Amplify Arts. Our primary reviewer is Linda. Our secondary reviewer is Susan. So Linda, please get us started with your review.
I'll start with a little summary though.
Oh, thank you. Please, Rachel, introduce us to the application.
That's all right. This way the panelists don't have to do it. I'm saving you guys work. So this grant will support the Generator Grant projects. The Generator grants provide a unique opportunity for emerging artists to gain professional skills developing and executing a group exhibition or performance. At the same time, they get to expand their networks and ties to the community through associated events. The projects will take place on a bi-monthly schedule at the Generator space, which is on 18th and Vinton Street in Omaha.
Very
right.
good. Thanks, Rachel. Now I will let Linda start us off with comments.
Okay, make sure I'm unmuted here since I'm going between screens. All right. So for the artistic quality, I think that this is a really, really important project to support local emerging artists in the Omaha area. And it is intentionally built to expand ties in the community in the Vinton Street area. I think it's a strong program for emerging artists because it has support through the entire process, curatorial concepts, studio visits, marketing. All of that was really great. In the work samples, I think that the secondary work sample accessibility guide was a really good tool. Although I would have liked to have seen more images in that to help individuals that are more of visual learners. One thing that really kind of went around on this grant a little bit was that it was unclear whether the artists listed in the bio attachment are actually selected and confirmed to participate this upcoming year, because it sounds like they haven't selected artists yet, but they have a list of artists sort of on the back burner that they would offer the program to, and I just wasn't sure how that works. And since the artists have not been confirmed for next year, I would have liked to know just a little bit more about the artist application and selection process. Again, just maybe a little more clarity, even just a couple sentences that says these artists in the attached bios have been confirmed and we have, 5 spots left to fill or something like that. More clarity around that would have been very, very helpful. In the planning and evaluation comments section, I think the project goals were clear, but they weren't very specific. I would have liked to have known more about the specific audience that the program wants to reach, as in the artists that they're trying to target. Is there an average age or experience level or lack of experience level, since this program is sort of a mentorship kind of program? Does that factor into their selection process? Their goal is to support majority BIPOC artists. That was very, very clear. And demographic info will be collected during the application process, but I wasn't sure how those two come together. How does the demographic information guide the selection process? Do they look at the BIPOC artist applications first and then fill in any spots after? How does that work? I also thought the participating artist questionnaire seems very useful and appropriate. I enjoyed that. A detailed timeline was also provided. It seems very practical for Amplify Arts to use. In the budget, I would have liked to seen some more varied income because as far as I know, the VIF funds have yet to be determined, and that makes up the entirety of their match. So I'm just curious, if that entire VIF funding doesn't come through, what are their plans to support the rest of the match? All right, so last section, outreach and engagement. I had quite a bit of comments on here, so I'll truncate some of them. Since the demographic information is collected on the artist, I think it could have been very helpful to have seen some of that demographic information shared about your past participating artists, because you seem to talk a lot about more of the neighborhood that you're in. I think that the program makes a really strong impact on local artists because that is evidenced in the survey results. So kudos for that. I think you have really good, strong promotional efforts. I did have one question about promotional, given that Vinton Street has such high foot traffic on second Fridays. I was looking for more tangible promotions such as flyers or handouts, and I didn't see much about that. And lastly, the only partners that were mentioned in the application are those that are within the neighborhood, which makes sense for the first Friday and their different outreach activities. But I was curious about any partners they might have in their artist recruitment efforts. And also who conducts the studio visits with the artists was a question that I had. And good letters of support. So yeah, I thought overall it was a really, really good application. Just a few things that left me questioning some stuff.
Okay, Linda, thank you. Great comments. And Susan, we'd love to hear from you now. And mute. Thank you.
You think after 2 years of this, we'd know that. Okay, I thought the strengths of this application were certainly the benefit that this brings to artists, emerging artists. I really thought the emphasis on giving them opportunities and setting them up with the resources that they need to create shows, whether they're more interested in the curatorial side or as an artist themselves, was a strong benefit. I thought the application process for selecting the artists was very strong. It provides these artists and participants with some entrepreneurial skills and some of the facilities that they might not have an opportunity to use otherwise. There are some opportunities for folks to use a gallery, but sometimes those are paid. So I thought that having a show for free and actually getting compensated for that was a strong benefit to this. I liked the focus on media that are, or the inclusion of media that aren't always represented typically when people go to some of the exhibitions on second Fridays or even on first Fridays in various parts of town. And an emphasis on looking for and reaching applicants from diverse backgrounds. One of the partnerships I know they have, and I don't remember whether I read this in one of the links, the emphasis or they have the partnership with the Union for Contemporary Art, I think I noticed. So I do agree that it could be strengthened, those partnerships that they have, so that they are not just able to select a variety of people from diverse backgrounds, but also to market to a wide group of artists to make sure that they have lots of applicants from different people. I thought, excuse me a moment. Yeah, I thought the work samples were very strong. And of course, I echo Linda with the looking at and bringing in some documentation and focusing on people with disabilities and how to reach people who have maybe visual impairments or who are non-hearing. I thought that was great and something that many places are not doing. So I appreciated that. Planning and evaluation, I thought this was pretty clear in the list that they provided and how they would measure that. I also thought that was well-informed. Their evaluation measures were well-informed. I thought their budget was really strong in that the bulk of it goes to artists. And I thought that was a great way to use the funding from NAC. I also thought putting funding towards having an actual exhibition space on Vinton Street was really beneficial. So I think the way that they would use the public funding is going to benefit both the artists and the public as well. And outreach and engagement, I think I mentioned a little bit of that in the first criterion that I discussed. I like how some of they have this nice kind of proven track record through what they've shown us of people who have successfully created these exhibitions and used this space. And I think some of them have used audience participation as well. So it engages people a little more strongly in the visual arts, which sometimes can be challenging to do. And I thought their letters of recommendation were really strong and demonstrated the importance of this project to the community and to the artists that it serves. So I thought this was a very strong application.
Thank you, Susan. Jamie, do you have any comments that you would like to make regarding this application?
I do just want to say I appreciated the website with their examples of the past exhibits that really did help inform what the project was going to do. And I liked their use of the wage standards and insisting with the artists being paid, that they were able to kind of back up where they were getting that information from. Under planning and evaluation, I was really particularly impressed with the fact that since this is their 5th year, they're recognizing the need to do a more in-depth outside consulting evaluation, just aside from doing an in-house. I think that takes a lot of self-awareness of an organization to say, okay, we're going to bring someone in from the outside to take a look at what we've done. Otherwise, nothing else to add that wasn't already mentioned. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Jamie. And Katrina, would you like to add any comments?
So I really concur with what everyone else has said, but also wanted to just share that building those community partnerships and talking about the demographics of who's being served is really important. And this is a great opportunity to connect with other organizations that are trying to build capacity for emerging artists. And so I would strongly recommend just building relationships with some of those organizations like Culture House or Cali Commons or some of the other other agencies that are working in this space.
Thank you. Thanks, panel. Rachel, will you please lead us with an introduction into the next application, Anastasis Theater Company?
Sarah, can we remind people real quickly that they
Yes.
should take a moment to change any scores they feel the need to?
Perfect. Thank you,
Thank
Mike,
you.
for that reminder. Yes, please, everyone, take a few moments to check your scoring and see if you want to make any changes and finalize that. And then give me a thumbs up when you're ready to move on to the next app. Katrina and Susan, I'm watching you. Great, thank you. Thank you very much. And now we'll let Rachel take us to the next application.
Sounds great. So the next one is for a tour of the play More Than a Number to partner sites throughout Omaha and Lincoln. This play breaks down the walls between incarcerated citizens and the outside world. Originally written and performed by a group of men at the Nebraska State Penitentiary, it shatters misconceptions and reveals the common thread of our humanity, sharing glimpses of life before prison, crucial moments of choice, life inside, and their hopes for the future.
Thank you, Rachel. And Jamie, you are going to lead us off with the primary review.
Yeah. Well, this is a really interesting and honestly very timely project for someone to be tackling right now in our state. And I was impressed that the show itself, the play itself, is already in development. And so this is this is the kind of second component of this project, which is the tour. I really like the community conversation aspect and additional follow-up opportunities that they talked about following the initial performance. Their support material, specifically the video from their past project, was wonderful. That really placed the entire project and kind of what they do and how they do it into terrific context. I really appreciated that. But I would have liked to have seen a little bit more information about the company itself, how old it is, some of the other things that they've accomplished. I did kind of dig around on their website and found out some of that information, but even just a sentence or two saying we were founded in 2018 and we've had a lot of success since then. Just something along that line would have helped me just to put the organization into a little bit more context. Under goals, very clear goal on how many people will be impacted, good with their evaluation techniques that they were discussing. I wonder if there was a way to measure their impact though beyond surveys, especially since they are having that follow-up event. I'm just wondering if there's ways that they can document the impact that it's had on the audience and on the performers beyond just a survey. Lots of very specific demographic information was included about the impact in the prison system. I would have liked to have known a little bit more about why the partners or partner organizations were selected, though. I felt like the application made an assumption that we would know who these three organizations were. And I'm not from Omaha, so I did not know anything about any of the mentioned organizations. Like I said, great timing of this project, though, my gosh. And I really liked that they planned to live stream one of the performances. And I would have just liked to have known a little bit more. Like I said, I compliment the timing of the project, but I would have liked to have known just a little bit more about how they got involved with the Department of Corrections. How was this partnership formed? Would have just added a little bit more insight for me. That is pretty much my main comments.
Great. Thank you, Jamie. And Susan, please lead us with the secondary reviewer report.
Sure. I felt that this application was also very strong. The summary and the mission of the organization were really informative to me and very helpful. I thought that the having professionals in the field and the bios were great. Working alongside system impacted individuals was an incredible strength. I thought also that the whole kind of purpose is that they're working with individuals who need more representation within the arts and to the rest of the community. So I also thought the value that this brought to those individuals working with the theater company could be very empowering. I think Jamie's comment about measuring how this impacts that community better would be interesting. I thought the demographics and the information that they provided was excellent. I learned a lot through reading that. I think that knowing just kind of out of personal curiosity, knowing how this would impact these folks long-term, does this help recidivism, or is there any kind of information we could find about how the arts help people when they re-enter to have greater, to have a greater impact on their lives long-term. But I thought the goals were good and the measures that they have were good. The budget I appreciated. I thought that there were a good amount of funds already secured, and I liked seeing how much of this project was already undertaken. So I thought it had a really kind of strong foundation already. I thought also the content, the way this company works with a variety, kind of changing the people that they work with on a regular basis, working with corrections today or this year. I thought that was a great relevant content as well, because this is something that's in need of reform. Strong partnerships. I thought those partnerships were great. I was familiar with them. And I think that demonstrates their interest in reaching not just system impacted and folks who have re-entered, but also, with the partnership with Black and Pink and Rise, reaching, all those intersectionalities. So I thought this was something that, making those partnerships was going to be really beneficial. I also thought the outreach, writing workshops that they said they have seems like a great way to benefit the community at large. But I also wanted to know more about that. What were the successes with that in the past? And how could they market that a little more strongly? And who do they want to be included in the writing workshops that are open to the public as well? So yeah, I thought, like I said, I thought this was a strong application, and I really liked how it did have a strong focus on a particular community.
Thanks, Susan. Katrina, do you have any comments you want to make regarding this application?
Not that different than what's already been shared.
Okay, thank you. And Susan, sorry. Linda, do you have any extra comments, additional?
Just one. This didn't affect my scoring at all, but maybe just curiosity, which is that they only requested $5,000, and it's a modest budget. And I just was wondering why they didn't request the full 75, especially because it looks like they are using a little bit of cash reserves. So maybe those cash reserves were earmarked for this project and all they needed was 5,000, but I was just curious on that.
Thank you, Linda. And Rachel, I'll hand it over to you for our next application introduction, Angels Theater Company.
We'll give them a couple minutes to change scores.
And change scores, thank you.
All right.
Thumbs up, and I'll let Rachel take over.
Great. So the next one that we're going to move to is Angels Theater Company. They will present the First Flight Festival, a performance series highlighting new pieces by area playwrights. The First Flight Festival, which, say that 3 times fast, offers playwrights an opportunity to experience the entire life cycle of a play from its inception to the final production in front of an audience. This year, it's scheduled to run from July 20th through the 30th, this summer of 2022, and it will afford local actors and directors a chance to collaborate with playwrights to bring diverse theater experiences to an audience.
Thank you, Rachel. And Susan, we will start with you.
Okay. This application, I think, has a strong track record of productions. I think that I did have some questions about who is involved. The First Flight members' plays are chosen to be produced. I remember reading that. I didn't get a sense of how people become part of that organization. And I didn't see anything that one of the attachments they had was the website. And so I looked through that and I didn't find any information about how you become part of that organization to become one of these playwrights who could then submit and have their work chosen for the event, for the production. I didn't know if the same people kind of get selected often. Perhaps finding or strengthening that explanation so we know that there's a lot of variety and diversity with who has their plays chosen. I think that kind of jumping around here a little bit, but going to the budget, it seemed to me that the pay for the playwrights and for the artists was a little bit low compared to the overall budget. The work samples was something I would have liked to have. I just felt as though I didn't get an adequate understanding of the type of production that is done. And so having the website was really helpful. Seeing the list of past authors and titles was good, but I would have liked to have maybe seen video of some previous productions just to see kind of the quality of play that is presented. I think this seems to be important to the community. I don't see evidence that this is very wide-reaching. I would have liked to know how they attempt to, or how they, perhaps some demographics of who attends. They said, and I remember reading that there was an attempt to attract a younger audience, or they are getting a little bit a younger audience, and they want to increase their relevance to the LGBTQ plus community. That they have a strong interest in the social awareness, and they're making an attempt to include more diverse community. I think that's important and appreciated, but I would like more information about how exactly they want to do that. I know the desire is there, but seeing how they will attempt that would be helpful to know. I think the folks that they gave bios for were great and they look very qualified. I would probably have liked to have seen some information about past playwrights and artists who presented, just to see, again, I wanted a little bit more information about the past successes. With planning and evaluation, I really like the idea of having the talkbacks for the community, having opportunities for audience engagement with those actors and playwrights and the directors is a wonderful idea. So I thought that was a great way to get feedback from them. And also just have that relationship with the community. One of the, I'm finding some comments that are a little bit redundant with what I just said. I guess, yeah, how do they try to draw more diverse and playwrights to the First Flight group to be included in that? So I didn't see strong, I would like to have seen more strong information about how they select that. I did read the blind readings of the plays, but seeing how this community of the theater company even comes together would have been interesting for me to know. Oh, I had one question that was mentioned, there was one mentioned demographic of, the quote in it was under the demographics that there's efforts to include more LGBTQ plus voices and people of color has resulted in a more diverse population attending the festival, which reflects the Catholic background of the playwrights, thespians, actors, and crew. So I wanted more information on that. Was this primarily a Catholic-based group? And was that a requirement to be part of the organization? So that just left me a little bit confused because it's something I hadn't seen before too much in applications. I didn't notice whether there were some really strong partnerships. It seemed to me like a lot of the partnerships that were listed were really more transactional, paying for the services of what they were partnering with. So one of the things that I thought was that the cost of the theater was pretty high in my opinion. And so I wondered, was that a partnership where there's that kind of mutual benefit, or is it simply just using a lot of their funding for that space to rent, and perhaps finding a stronger partnership for that, where they could get some more benefit from it. The letters of support were very positive. I thought I really appreciated that this was encouraging of parents and people who have different schedules and have a lot on their plate, because I think a lot of us who have such busy schedules don't always have time to participate in the arts because they do take a lot of time, but really trying to accommodate, I thought was something that was a fantastic quality that they have. I didn't see some strong information about measurable goals. So I think that would really strengthen an application, would be to have measurable goals listed that align very well, with those measurement, or having the measures available that would align with the goals. And maybe a little bit of a stronger planning process for this project. I think a timeline document would have helped that too. The budget is realistic, itemized, explains what the money would be used for. Maybe a little bit more information about the project director and some of the other technical people, since they're earning the bulk of the funding. And there was just one small error I saw in the budget, and that was the lighting designer was listed as getting $500, but the budget reflected $750 in the column with the funding. But then right next to it on the left, it said 500. So I don't think that is a huge problem. It may distract a little bit from the understanding, but I certainly understand how it is when you have to change your budget around a lot and then you just miss one little Excel cell. So, but just something to be aware of. And I think that completes the comments that I had.
Thank you, Susan. Jamie, you are up next.
All right. One thing before I lose this train of thought, I noted the Catholic comment too, and just being familiar with this organization, I'm 99% sure that that's a typo of some sort, that it might have been a Microsoft Word autocorrect from some other word, because I know this is not a religious-based organization, and doesn't have the background of that. So,
thank you.
Yeah. No, this is a good program for developing playwrights and encouraging new voices. They've been doing this for a number of years, and is really a strong component of the Lincoln Theater community. I would have really liked more details about the Playwright Collective, which is where the plays come from. I wish the application would have addressed it more. I personally happen to be familiar with it because one of our staff members is a part of it. But I wish that the application would have talked about it, because it just kind of says the Playwright Collective exists and it does its thing. And that's where these plays come from. And like Susan mentioned, really would have appreciated details about how someone becomes involved in it, if it's a selection process, if it's just hey, sign me up or whatever. The monthly workshops for the playwrights is good for helping develop the works. I would have liked to have seen details about how the playwrights change and adapt their works as a result of the feedback that they see in the workshops. It was addressed to a certain amount in the outreach section of the application, but I would have liked to have seen it mentioned more in the artistic quality section. The support web pages are fine, but it would have been a lot more insightful if it would have gone beyond just a list of these were the past shows that we've done and these are the cast lists. Video highlights of some sort would have been appreciated, or even just a synopsis of what the shows were about and some of the topics that they addressed. The application talks about encouraging the diverse voices. This is some that Susan talked about too, but there wasn't there weren't a lot of details about how those voices are being sought out and what metrics they're going to use to measure their success in that regard. And again, they talked about seeing results and growth of representation, but it wasn't really quantified for me. Good that it encourages new directors and also that it provides a mentoring with new directors and experienced ones. I like that they're surveying participants and they showed how they're using that feedback to improve the process. The talkbacks are really good as well and do give the playwrights some good feedback on their work. They mentioned some of their other programming as a means of promotion, and it could expand a bit on what those are. I happen to, again, know about this organization, so I know some of the stuff that they do, but the details weren't really given to us in the application. The letters of support were very good and positive. Those are my comments. Overall, this is a really good program. The application, I would have appreciated some more specific details and a few more attention to details from the application.
Thank you, Jamie. Katrina, do you have any additional comments?
Just to echo what's been shared already, that I really appreciate the overall objective of this project and program to help playwrights create and develop professionally, but there was a lack of detail. I felt, especially in the project evaluation sections, just using SMART goals would be helpful, and outlining how you're going to achieve them would help to frame it a little bit better for me personally. And then with the outreach and engagement section, I felt like this was relatively weak in terms of underserved community outreach and engagement. There was a lot of real estate, application real estate used to talk about in-reach, but not really to talk about how you're going outside of the core group that you have to bring other people in, or to at least engage with other folks. And so that was a weak point for me.
Thank you. Linda, any comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Jamie, I really appreciate your review of this application, because I kept thinking to myself over and over, this is a project that must happen year after year, and the people who are planning it, they know what they're doing, but they just didn't quite articulate it. And so your review helped me understand that probably is the case. And so I just wanted to say one recommendation to the applicant, which is usually the next staff are pretty open to doing like a pre-panel review or pre-submission review of your application a few weeks before you submit it. Reach out and say, hey, is there anything that I could do better in my application? Do you have any outstanding questions? And the next staff can really help you. So before you get to the panel, maybe some of those questions could have been addressed. So just a recommendation for next time.
Thank you, Linda. And panelists, please take a few moments to complete your scoring and give me a thumbs up sign. Thank you all. I think we are reaching an hour of time, but I think what we will do is review the next application and then take a break following that review. And our next application is Bone Creek Art Museum. And Rachel, please give us an update.
Great. So this application is for the Farm Island Anthology exhibition at the Bone Creek Museum of Agrarian Art, which is in David City. The exhibition would be March 17th through July 9th of 2023. It's a juried exhibition that calls for new artwork from artists from across the country, but inspired by the Farm Island Anthology, which is poetry. And joining the poetry will be museum events and student educational programming.
All right. And our first reviewer is Susan.
Yes, I thought this artistic merit here was very high. I think it was a beautiful marriage of visual arts and literary arts. And I really liked how it encouraged artists and also will encourage the community to consider both at the same time. I thought the bios of the artists were excellent. I really appreciated having access to Penny Nini's work. I thought it was really inspiring and a beneficial aspect of the application to be able to read some of those examples and some of those poems to get a sense of that kind of writing that she does. So that was a really excellent choice to include that. The artist bio for the juror as well, I thought was wonderful. I think she will be very qualified in that role. The project, I think, is really important to the community. I think it really hits that an underserved rural population. This museum, it may be one of the only visual arts museums that is in a very rural location. And so people from quite a distance around it, this might be one of the very few or only avenues they have to experience the visual arts and literary arts outside of in educational settings such as school. So I thought that this topic is something that is really relevant to the community. They did give information about how a large part of the community is involved in agrarian culture. And so I think this project could be very well loved by the community and the people who visit. The planning and evaluation, yeah, it looks to me like this was a very long-awaited project, and that they had spent a significant amount of time already planning this. So between the administrators who are working on this, kind of the museum success itself, knowing that they have done this kind of work before, arranging exhibitions, and that's a large chunk of what they do. It seems to me like the planning that they provided, all of this seems like it will be very successful in the planning stage. It looked to me like there was a large part of the budget will go to the artists. And so I thought that was nice that you will have several artists from maybe the region, even the whole state or the Midwest. I think there's a regional call for arts. So a lot of that money will go directly to artists. I thought that the outreach and engagement was really good as well. Being, like I said, in that rural area, they seem to be offering a lot of opportunities for people to engage with this project, aside from just visiting the museum itself. The inclusion of the summer workshops and the camps for the area youth, I thought was excellent. And it seems like they demonstrated how much this museum is appreciated within the community already. Good collaboration, I thought, with the Tubac Art Center. I think it's nice to see how we can have collaborations with other states and other parts of the country, and we can learn from one another. So I thought that was that was a good strength. And the call for art engaged a wide variety of artists. One thing I would like to see is how they might encourage people from an agrarian, who have agrarian interests in their art, that might be from maybe communities that we wouldn't think of. We tend to think kind of like rural America with agrarian culture, but there's a strong connection to the land among Native Americans. Was there an attempt to reach them? Even the history of Black Americans, I would like to see how they might encourage more submissions from people who might otherwise think, or even market the show to people who might think that's not really something that's for me, when in fact there could definitely be a demographic there that would represent this very well. Yeah, I like that, the show itself is free to the public. The museum is always there and available to the community. I think, yeah, that was my biggest suggestion, was to maybe strengthen the means of reaching underserved audience. Could they reach out to other organizations to come in other than the local schools to observe and be part of this? I also like the Food for Thought program. That sounds really interesting. I would have liked to have known a little bit more about that, but I think it was a great opportunity for community engagement.
Great, thank you.
Concludes my comments.
I'm sorry. Thank you. And Katrina.
Thank you. Susan, I think your assessment is spot on. This is a really important project. And I think for me, I really appreciated the details that were provided about in the project description and in the artistic merit sections about the Farm Island anthology poetry and using art as a call to action, both literary and visual art, and engaging youth in the process of connecting those two mediums in a way that is reflective of their lived experience. And so I think that was that's something that stood out to me. I appreciate also the thought that was put into, sorry, I'm trying to scroll and talk at the same time, which apparently is very difficult. But the thought that was put into the connections and the call to action and how, or excuse me, not the call to action, but the call for artists crossing different boundaries, not just within, a local area, but expanding a little bit further to get different perspectives included in this program. With the planning and evaluation piece, I would like to see a little bit more, I would like to challenge the organization to get a little bit more creative in terms of their evaluation tools, just maybe thinking outside the box a little bit in terms of how they can get information from not only their participants, but the audience members. So that was something that stood out as well in the outreach and engagement piece. Just I'm sensitive to the term youth at risk or at-risk youth. I know it's in the application itself, but I think that, again, there's a asset-based way to talk about different populations of people that humanizes and offers dignity. So like youth experiencing adverse circumstances or what have you, just a way that it doesn't frame in this case, frame the child as being at risk of something, but having opportunity and potential. So I think there's just different ways to frame things like that.
Very good. Jamie, do you have, did I cut in too soon, Katrina? Okay, thank you. Jamie, do you have any additional thoughts?
Just a couple of little things, just echoing what everybody else said. This is a really fascinating project. Especially for a community like David City. And this museum is a wonderful asset to that community as well. I'm a little familiar, I have family who live in that community, so I'm kind of a little familiar with this organization. I would have liked to have seen just a clarification for me. They talk about posting, or do they talk about using Cafe for seeking submissions? And just tell us what that is, because I don't know what that is. And I assume it's somewhere where you post for artist submissions, but I was never told that's what that was. Under goals, I would have liked to have seen just the goals a little more well-defined as well. Just even just some quantitative things like how many visitors they're expecting, how many students they hope to take part in the workshops, etc. That would have just been something to measure a little bit. Under outreach, there were two little things that under here that I would have liked to have seen. They talk about the partnership with the museum in Arizona, but I would have liked to have seen a letter of support from them, because we say that they were partnering with this, but we never get anything from them, and that would have really been valuable. And the other thing is, they say in the programming impact, they lay out things like farmers need encouragement, and then say that the exhibition should do that. I'd like to see a little bit more elaboration on statements like that, as child of farmers, and, just saying, you need encouragement. Why do we need encouragement? I would have liked to have seen that brought to a little bit more clarity about why they felt that statement should be made. So that's
Thank you,
all I have.
Jamie. Okay, great. Thank you. And let's pause now to take a short break, and you can also update your scores, and we will reconvene again at 10:15.
Sarah, do you mind if I leave one comment on the notes for Bone Creek?
Did I not get back to you, Linda?
No, that's okay.
Thank you.
So I just wanted to caution to Bone Creek relying on free admission as meaning that you are reaching an underserved audience. More intentional outreach would have been appreciated. Our doors are always open and free isn't intentional. And I was kind of curious, they talked a lot about student groups, but I wondered if they did any proactive outreach to senior groups in their area. It seems like a exhibition that would be of interest to all ages. So I'd just be curious to know if they reach out to older adults too.
Linda, thank you. Good comments, everyone. Okay, we'll you update your scores. We'll take a short break. We'll reconvene at 10:15.
Going great so far, Sarah.
Thank you, Mike. We'll give everybody a moment to rejoin us.
And that comment was meant for everybody. It's going very well. Thank you all.
I agree. I agree. Great job, panelists. And I will let Rachel begin by giving us the introduction to the Brownville Village Theater Foundation.
Great. So this is the Brownville Village Theater's 55th summer repertory season. It will run July through August of 2022, and they are located in Southeast Nebraska. And the production will, costs include 5 shows that are performed this summer.
Very good. And Jamie, you will start us off with your comments.
Well, I thought a good detailed description of the season and their process. I probably could have used maybe a little bit more condensed, but I appreciate the information and not having to wonder and do any additional research on my own about an organization. They mentioned bringing in audiences from the surrounding area. I'd like to see data on how many communities are typically served by the organization. They kind of mentioned that in several places, and I would have liked to have just seen, like, we know that there's X amount of communities, and they've got a way to do it because they talked about tracking. I think this was the one that talked about tracking the zip codes with their box office. Let's see, I like to comment about why the shows were selected as part of the season to kind of give some cohesion to the season selection there. A good amount of demographics about the age in the area. One thing that really strikes me with this application is that this is a true summer repertory company, and companies like this honestly don't exist that much anymore across the country. So that's really important to the tradition of summer theaters. And like I said, there's just not that many opportunities to do true summer rep anymore. I would have actually liked to have seen them play that up. I think that would have really strengthened the application if they would have talked about how this is kind of a dying beast of theater production. Good description of the casting process. I really like as they were developing their marketing plan, I was impressed with the fact that they kind of built a marketing plan around a specific person, and that's a good marketing technique. They built it around, okay, what would a 30-year-old mother who lives in Rockport, Missouri how do we reach her? And so that's a really, really good way to just think specifically about how do we market our target audience. They talk about the goal of increasing contributors, but don't necessarily notice a plan on how they hope to achieve that. There were a couple of the goals of like, we want to do this, but then they didn't say, this is how we're going to do it. They talk about increasing attendance for each show, and they did good with giving specific numbers. However, I would have liked a little bit of context about the size of the house and what that is percentage-wise. I happen to know that it's a really small auditorium, but when they say that we want 50 people a night, and that's 99% of the house, that would have helped place that in a little bit more of context. Good evaluation with conversations and license plate tracking. I wondered if there was an end of the season exit interview for the company members, because that could certainly help them measure the effectiveness of the programming and also that educational professional experience for those college age company members, to know, what did you get out of this? How are you a better actor, designer, or whatever, having just done 5 shows in three months? I do like that they are choosing to focus on age and economic issues as far as their diversity outreach. Just because Southeast Nebraska is fairly homogeneous, There isn't a lot of racial diversity in that area. I like that the staff recently attended a workshop on how to improve social media marketing, good variety of tools used from traditional to new media, and good scholarship free tuition for outreach things. So yeah, those were my comments.
Great, thank you, Jamie. And Linda, we love to hear from you.
Wonderful. So overall, I think this was a great application. I really enjoy that they bring multiple shows in to on one single weekend, so that somebody coming in can see multiple shows and stick around. I think that that is a unique model to kind of encourage visitors to come into town. I'm not familiar with the normal prep time for a show, but I thought 5 to 8 days seemed a little short when I was looking at the timeline, but maybe Jamie can speak to that a little bit better. I would have liked to have known a little bit more about each of the plays, maybe a short description. I think that the photos and video clips of performances might have made for some stronger work samples. And I think that there's a good description of their selection process, which I enjoyed looking at. I think good goals were provided, and I liked that they collect both qualitative and quantitative data to evaluate those. I think the timeline was useful, but they mentioned somewhere in the narrative that they collect surveys from the cast, but I didn't see the survey collection in the timeline. I think the budget was clear. There was varied income and expenses that are well thought out, but I did have a couple questions. I wondered if lodging for cast members coming in from out of state is covered, or if they have to find that on their own. And I'm also curious about the breakdown of the $31,000 in donations. Are those individual donors, sponsors? It just seemed like a big part of the budget. In the last outreach and engagement section, I think that it's clearly impactful for the community. Like I said, the model of having multiple shows in one weekend is great. Strong promotion to surrounding communities that they want to reach, flyers, newspaper ads, social media. I like how varied their promotional efforts are. And I also enjoyed learning about the new edition of the Young Performers Workshop. And I guess I would have liked to know a little bit more about that workshop, but I like that they added it. I think that also the letter of support from the Omaha County Visitors Committee was very strong. Just maybe a thought for next time, a letter of support from maybe a former cast member about their experience, or an audience member would have been appreciated, and I think could have told the story about how important this program is for the artists that come into town. Yeah, overall, I love the project, and I think it was a strong application.
Thank you, Linda. Katrina, any additional comments? Okay, thank you. And Susan, any additional comments? And unmute, please.
Thanks. I appreciated hearing Jamie's comments and explaining maybe the importance of summer repertoire theater. So I think strengthening that would be good. I know the village of Brownville is kind of a destination place. So I really did appreciate seeing how this helps the economy and how strongly supported this is with the community, and also this kind of increases some tourism to the area. But I also wanted to know more about those plays, and I looked them up myself just to get some of them I was familiar with, but and they look like great theater, But I would also think perhaps there's an opportunity here to bring some more challenging content for the attendees to consider and to think about. Perhaps doing things in addition to comedy, and maybe having one of those talkbacks or an opportunity for people to engage and talk about the content could be something that could be really a great learning opportunity for people through the arts. And so I would just suggest maybe giving a little more explanation of how those particular titles that are chosen might benefit the community.
Thank you.
Could I
And
could I just answer Linda's question that she had? In this summer rep format, a 2-week rehearsal process is kind of a standard procedure. So a 5 to 8 day from read through to opening, you never sleep, and that's how you get the show up.
Man, you actors have a good memory. I would never be able to memorize
that's why these sort of programs are done by college kids, because Lord knows I could not do that anymore.
Thank you. Okay, everyone take a moment to update your scores. Okay. Susan, I think I got enough thumbs up from you, and Jamie, that's fine. Okay, great, thank you. And Rachel, will you please take us into the Encourage Advocacy Center?
Absolutely. So this grant is meant to assist in the cost of a sculpture that will be a central part of the summer outreach tour. They are planning on having a booth at 6 to 8 festivals throughout Adams, Clay, Nuckolls, and Webster counties during this summer, at which thousands of visitors can learn more about the services offered by Encourage, and they get to contribute to the sculpture. The finished piece will be unveiled to the public in October during the Community Domestic Violence Awareness Month concert and displayed in a public location.
All right. And Linda, will you please start us off with a primary review?
Yes, absolutely. Let me navigate to it. All right. So this application for me was a little bit difficult because it seems to be a project that the sculpture, I guess, I'm a little bit concerned that the sculpture seems to be a replica of the organization's logo and painted in the organization's logo's colors. And it just feels a little odd that they would be applying to the Nebraska Arts Council for this project. And I'm really glad to see that the sculpture will have a life beyond the tabling events, but I think that why this particular art project is important to the community was not articulated very well, and I think that was the missing piece for me. Particularly, I'm wondering if they selected David as the artist because his heritage is important to the specific communities that they serve. That wasn't expressed. And I think that the artist is very well qualified to do public projects, but it was really difficult for me to know why this project was important for the community. I was curious how visitors will mark up the sculpture that David is making. I see it's going to be built out of a resin material. And so I'm wondering, what visitors will use to mark that sculpture, and then how David will finalize it for display. I was curious to learn more about that. The primary and secondary work samples were confusing. I'm not sure if they just didn't have a place to describe what it was we were seeing, but I wasn't sure if that was what the sculpture will resemble, or if that was actually the sculpture. If it's not the sculpture, I would have liked to maybe seen like a sketch or just a description of what it will look like, aside from mirroring the logo of the organization. In the planning and evaluation section, the bios are provided for the administrators, but it's not clear how those administrators support the project. I think that all of the project goals are tied to the organization itself rather than the art project. And since this application is to the Nebraska Arts Council, I think it would be important to set some goals and evaluations around the art project itself. And I was just wondering how that will be evaluated. Those goals will be evaluated. Another note here is the sculpture completed yet. That was a little unclear in the timeline in the narrative. And again, whether or not that work sample was actually the sculpture. I think a balanced budget with varied income was provided. And I do really appreciate that the budget only reflects this very specific art project and the payment to the artist. In outreach and engagement, I think it was clear that some of the communities that they are going to are in rural areas and are underserved. And I'm glad to see that they've hired a bilingual staff and have converted their materials to both English and Spanish. And they said that 3 of their staff are bilingual. I was kind of curious what percentage of that, of their entire organization. Are they a staff of 100 or 5? I think the organization has a really strong impact on the community, but I would have liked to know more about the impact of this particular sculpture. And I think marketing efforts are very thorough with them being in bilingual. One other question, will there be an opportunity for the community to meet David during this? Is he going to be present at any of the tabling events or at the unveiling at the end? Again, that goes back to why was David selected for this project, and why is he important to the community? And I think overall for the organization itself, they have some really strong community partners. And I appreciate that they are looking to a local artist to create this project for them, rather than maybe commissioning somebody out of state or something like that. I really do appreciate that they are commissioning a local artist for this project.
Thank you, Linda. And Susan, can we hear from you, please?
Yes, I thought another, in agreement with Linda, one of the great benefits to this application was that this is money going to create a work of art. And it's really a very simple ask. And I know that we like to spend the money on actual art that people will be able to observe and view. So it was pretty cut and dried in that sense. But there were some things also that were providing some questions to me. I think it could be, I would like to know a little bit more about the ongoing life of this work of art. And I think that that was a little bit narrowly defined, perhaps that it will go into a permanent location, but then mentioning that there would be a capital campaign sometime down the road kind of left some what ifs and some questions about where that sculpture would be viewed for quite a while. It could be kind of a limited audience ongoing, but I think determining who is that audience for the future would be important. I did think that the choice of the artist was excellent, and I really liked the work samples. It would have been nice to have maybe a letter of support from the artist who provided some works of art and a little bit more information. The website was very good. the Instagram pictures were, I just think that could have, a little more time could have perhaps been spent on showing examples of the works of art and his commitment to this project. But it did seem as though this is a project that's already being realized. And I think the use of a work of art for a purpose that seems for this organization to be kind of a marketing tour that they're doing, I think that's a really interesting use of a work of art. And I like the idea that they see that value and that importance that a work of art can bring to just their presence in a festival or a fair or something. So I thought that was a really interesting idea. It can certainly draw a lot of people to that booth and bring interest to the organization, but also to that work of art as an individual piece. So saying that the idea that people would have an opportunity to contribute to that work of art also was a little bit unclear to me and made me a little bit nervous. And I think perhaps altering a work of art that an artist has made, I just would like to see a very strong explanation of how that will happen, and that the artist is designing the piece for knowing that that's kind of part of the purpose. So I think that's one thing that made me a little kind of confused about the piece. I also had some questions about the timeline. I like that there were a lot of festivals listed the idea of bringing artwork to people. You don't always know who your audience will be if it's a major public event like that and they're not coming for the purpose of artwork. So I think you could reach a lot of people who wouldn't be expecting to engage with art. But I didn't know if this work of art would be done in time for a lot of them. It kind of seemed like maybe it wouldn't be. So knowing exactly when this would be completed would have been important to know. And does the artist, kind of echoing Linda, what participation does the artist have outside of just making the art, which I think is fine, but it would be interesting to know, will the artist be with the work of art if people start wanting to talk about that artwork and knowing who this artist is? Will there be, information to support that artist and give information about the artwork at the event? So I think maybe knowing what the artist is going to do with this programming would be good too, if there is any. The outreach engagement, like I said, this is far reaching. Lots of communities in Nebraska will have an opportunity to see this piece. I like how they, point out that they want to use this artwork, and go to some additional fairs that they haven't gone to in the past. The LGBTQIA+ community going to the Pride Festival is good because they want to certainly draw awareness to the same kinds of issues that they work with among all communities, and that these are things that affect all of us. So I think expanding their reach was nice to know that they're doing that. And then I guess a question I had was, how will that artwork benefit the clients of the organization long term? And that has a little bit to do with not knowing where this will permanently be. So I think the idea of traveling art is visual art is a really nice idea, and could be brought to a lot of people. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Susan. Jamie, do you have any additional comments?
No, I just want to echo, like, my biggest concern with this application was that the way it really read to me like this is a marketing piece as opposed to a piece of art. And so that the application could have made it into an art piece, I think, with some different phrasing and different approach to the application, but it really just stuck me the whole time as this is just a promotional piece for the organization, which is a great organization, but I just have some concerns about its purpose.
Thank you, Jamie. How about you, Katrina? Anything to add?
I was really torn on this proposal. The connectivity to the artwork as more than just a marketing piece was hard to make that connection for me. I think it's one thing to commission like the artist's interpretation of the organization or the organization's logo or something, but to have a replica of it that I don't know, I struggled with it. I struggled with it a lot. I do think that being able to take it to different communities and to be able to use it to talk about the work of the organization is great, but that it was really more about, it felt more about the me being the organization than the we, than the public benefit to it. So that's just kind of where I landed on it.
Thank you, Katrina. Okay, well, please take a few moments and update your scores before we move on to the next application. Linda, Jamie, Susan, Katrina, thank you. Okay, Rachel, you're up. Flatwater Shakespeare Company.
Great. So this application is to help pay the cast and crew who will be producing the fall production of Julius Caesar. All performances will be held at the stables at the cemetery in Wyuka, which is in Lincoln, and it will take place August through September during Thursdays through Sundays. They're estimating 600 to 800 people will attend the production.
Thank you. And Susan, will you please get us started? And unmute, please. Thanks.
Okay, I think this organization has a really strong history of productions. They've been in the community a long time. They have good recognition from Lincoln and a broader area. I think they bring high quality historical drama to the community, and I think there's a value to that, and I think it's important. I see that they reach a large audience. So I don't question at all the quality of the artistic production that they are proposing here and that they've been doing for a long time. The planning and evaluation, kind of like I said, they have a good track record of this, strong team of admins, and a lot of success. I had a question really about, I guess, the target audience and how to attempt to reach them. I think, I've seen a lot of the interest in bringing more diverse populations to productions, especially Shakespeare, but not a lot of really strong explanation as to how they will do that. So I think there are some good engagement and outreach opportunities here, having the talkbacks with the Osher Lifelong Learning Institute and reaching those elders is good. I'd like to know more about that and perhaps would like to see more talkbacks kind of going on with other audiences too. I think that the cost of tickets could be a little bit high for some families if you're bringing lots of people to it. I noticed that they are trying to get attendances from high school English classes and schools, local high schools. Taking the summer tour to parks, I thought was a really great idea. I think if you're trying to reach audiences that you haven't in the past, sometimes going to a new audience is a good way to do that. My concern is how do we encourage or bring the importance of Shakespeare to today's society and culture? I think making it relevant today is a bit of a challenge, and I think there's really creative ways to do that. But I wonder how do you communicate to people that they should see Shakespeare and they want to see Shakespeare instead of maybe they do want to see more artists that are relevant and come from their own communities. So I guess the challenge I had with this was using Nebraska state taxpayer money for a festival that is already very well established, that focuses on a canonical writer in the history of the English language, but is also from another country, and we are continuing to use our public funding to support that kind of apex of the traditional canon, when we have so much that's really in Nebraska to celebrate. I think, like I said, I think the value of Shakespeare is great, incredible writing, but I would like to see us spend our own tax money on something that might be more relevant to more people in Nebraska without in any way negating the importance and the value of Shakespeare. So that being said, could they do something incredibly different with Shakespeare that might bridge across the different communities? The elders who might have a much more education on Shakespeare versus our young people who certainly probably still get it in high school. And I think it's still part of curriculum in our state, to teach British Lit as a whole class. But I wonder if we might use our taxpayer funds to kind of rethink the canon of what our quality authors are. So I guess I think that it's a strong application. The letter of supports are good, very accommodating. I just don't know about, I don't see in this application that there's a really strong emphasis to make Shakespeare really relevant to us. And I'd like to see more exploration of that.
Thank you, Susan. And Jamie, please give us the secondary review.
Sure. I thought it was a good description of the project. The organization has been around for a long time. They've been doing really quality work in a very unique space at Wyuka in the carriage house there. I liked how they pointed out having a new executive director was a positive instead of a negative, that they made that point that they could reach new artists because they had this new executive artistic director on board. I generally would like to see a little bit more specific details though in the artistic quality section, kind of echoing what Susan had talked about. I liked it discussing the merits of producing Shakespeare as Shakespeare and the impact that Shakespeare has had on English language and drama. So they talked about that instead of simply stating it's Shakespeare, you should love it by default, because I'm a theater person who doesn't love Shakespeare by default. So I like that they backed that up. But, I think that if they would have talked a little bit more about why this specific production was selected at this time, and the way that maybe the concept of the production might be able to address some of the concerns like Susan had about supporting this program, if they would have addressed like, we're doing this show because it speaks to these issues that Nebraskans are facing right now, and it will connect the timelessness of human nature. I think that would have probably helped to make the overall application a little bit more broad and relevant. There was a good breakdown of goals and how each goal will be measured. I like that they discussed the fact that they have this code of conduct, which is a concern in the acting community, in the performer community right now. Very detailed with their demographic information. I thought they did a nice job of connecting program impact to age ranges, being specific about how the organization interacts and will market to the different age ranges. Good for having the talkbacks, and I might have missed it as I was going through the application, but I wanted to just know more about how many talkbacks they were going to do. Are they doing it for each performance? Are they just doing special, just when the certain people or groups are there? I just would have liked to have seen that addressed specifically in the application. That's what I have.
Thank you. And Katrina, do you have any thoughts you would like to share regarding this application?
I think everything's been covered. from my perspective.
Okay, very good. And Linda, anything to add?
Just to piggyback on Jamie's last comments there about, well, not in the middle of his comments about selecting what play they're going to do. In the programming impact section, they say because they have so many regular patrons, they cycle through the most common Shakespeare plays and sometimes add one or more obscure ones. So that told me that they purposefully select common plays and maybe don't have any desire to go beyond that. And sort of to Susan's point, maybe we should see more desire to go beyond the normal and reach new audiences and do more with Shakespeare than what we're used to. So that was one thing that stood out to me in the application.
All right, thank you. And you all can take a moment and update your scores for this application. Give me a thumbs up. I see Linda, Susan, thank you, Katrina and Jamie. All right, thank you, everyone. And we will move on to our next application, which is the Great Plains Theater Commons. And Rachel, please introduce it to us.
So this grant will support the 2022-23 season of Playfest, which is the Great Plains Theater Commons free festival of contemporary new theater works performed across Omaha. This is now the 12th year for Playfest, and it remains unique in Omaha's theater landscape. The performances take on a variety of forms, from devised theater and movement work by local and national artists, all the way to full-length plays, highlighting play labs from GPT's annual New Play Conference to neighborhood tapestries, which is a celebration of local stories, music, art, and community.
Thank you, Rachel. And we will start with our primary reviewer of this application, Katrina.
Thank you. So the Great Plains Theater Commons, GPTC, is a well-known organization in the Omaha community, and sets a really great example of how to engage and incorporate diverse voices into arts. The artistic merit section, I think, did a great job of outlining the areas of need that they're addressing. Kudos for using the landscape data to talk about the arts and to really call out what those areas are. I appreciate the artist bios, but would have liked to see Denise Chapman included. She was mentioned a couple of times throughout the application. And so it would have been helpful to just see her included, and also a little bit more about the connections and importance to various communities referenced. Then as a suggestion, in the artistic merit section, I would just recommend not using the phrase lack of, or at least using it sparingly, because it is deficit-based instead of asset-based. So as an example, rather than addressing a lack of diversity and engagement opportunities, an option could be to say something like, we see an opportunity to further engage diverse communities in performing in visual arts, or something to that effect, where it's just more affirmative and asset-based. In the planning and evaluation section, I thought it was really well laid out. Bear with me as I scroll. I thought it was really well laid out in terms of what they were going to accomplish and how they were going to achieve the goals that they had. I do recognize and acknowledge that they called out that it is difficult to measure changes in behavior and in beliefs, and I appreciate the effort to gather quantitative and qualitative information from the audiences and participants. I think catalyzing dialogue within communities around different topics is really important, and creating the space and a shared experience in which to unpack some of that dialogue is critical, especially in the environment, the social environment that we're in right now, being able to have those safe spaces to have conversations. And I think that this project really creates the environment to do so. The budget I thought was thorough, and I appreciated the additional context that was provided in the budget narrative. So I didn't have any questions there. And then in the outreach and engagement category, I really appreciated their taking into consideration how communities interact and share information, and incorporating that into their outreach and engagement efforts. I would have liked to see some more quantitative data to support the underrepresented and diversity efforts, the engagement efforts around those areas, especially through the Neighborhood Tapestries project. But I do, again, recognize that the community connectors working to develop community engagement activities and different things. So maybe it's not the typical survey or, polling. Maybe they're going to be able to collect data in a different way by having those activities and events around that are really focused on the work that's being performed. The last note that I have is about Yates. Yates Community Center was brought up, and I think it's important to share with panelists the importance of that space because not everyone may be familiar. And so just a recommendation to write like you're talking to somebody from Illinois in describing the project that you're doing, how it's going to connect the community and what those community spaces mean to audiences. And that is all I have.
Thank you, Katrina. Jamie, you go ahead.
Yeah. Well, overall, I thought that this was a very well prepared and well written application. I thought it was one of the stronger written applications that we looked at. Very clear and well crafted program description, great variety of programs and the topics of each of these programs. Excuse me. I also really appreciated how they addressed how the organization has grown and evolved over the years, going from the Great Plains Theater Conference to what it is now as a year-round program that is really being impactful. I really appreciated that context that this application gave us. Wonderful connecting the goals, and Katrina mentioned this too, to the landscape report. I love it when organizations can take all this research. We do all this research in other places, and sometimes we just let these reports sit on shelves and don't utilize them. And so I love it when organizations can make reference to those sort of things and say how they're actually using them. Good work sample videos. And as someone who is into post-show evaluations and surveys, I really liked the recognition of the difficulties inherent with audience and post-show surveys, that they know, like, yeah, this isn't the best, and we're trying to find more ways to gather impact. I like that they listed the type of questions that they wanted addressed by the audience as well in their evaluations, so they're being very clear and deliberate in those choices. And really good example of how previous examples of previous projects and the ways the impact was measured from those. It's showing that they're taking what they're learning and not just setting it aside. This is clearly a program built around having an impact on diverse communities throughout its service areas, and very clearly defined communities and how they're going to interact with them. And the partnerships were very deliberate as well. Like I said, I really thought that this was a well put together application.
Thank you, Jamie. Susan, would you like to make any additional comments?
Yes, just to second what has been said, I think this is an excellent application and the project is great. One of the things I wanted to point out, I think, is that this is a great example of how they had a goal to broaden the voices that they are giving stage to. And I think, that statement in the statement that was made here under artistic merit was great. It's creating a chance for friends and neighbors to interact and be a catalyst for dialogue within the community about stories that affect our lives. So I just wanted to kind of point out that the way to do that is also explained well in this, in that they created the neighborhood tapestries kind of aspect of Great Plains Theater Conference or Commons, sorry, where they actively seek out ways to bring voices in from all over that will give that that stage and that space to lots of different diverse groups within our community. So I think that's an excellent way that they have made really tangible, intentional steps to do that.
Very good. Linda, do you have any comments you want to share, please?
I think everything was covered. Thank you.
All right, thanks. So everyone take a moment to complete your scoring and give me a thumbs up. Okay, Jamie and Katrina, Linda and Susan, did you do a thumbs up? Thank you. Out of my peripheral, thanks. Okay, so our next grant application is the Grumble Project, and please give us the introduction, Rachel.
So this grant will help pay Nebraska artists involved in developing a new original play titled Sustaining the Village, which is based on interviews of statewide early childhood care providers. It will premiere in the spring of 2023. The world premiere will take place at the Golden Husk Theater, which is in Valley County, Nebraska. And then they plan to tour to additional communities in greater Nebraska. Sustaining the Village engages the artists in the crucial issues surrounding early childhood development in our state.
All right, thanks. And Jamie will lead us with the primary review.
Yeah, so this is a very interesting project, and I think a really good subject matter as well. And I also really appreciate that this project focuses on greater Nebraska. Even though Blix is a Lincoln-based organization, that they are going out into central Nebraska to actually create this project. They really could have easily just stayed in their own backyard and probably developed something similar, but this is going to have an impact on a wider variety of the state. So good explanation of the organization and its success with previous projects like this. I wish they would have been able to have nailed down where the other touring locations were for sure. That was just something that I was like, oh, and knowing a little bit about some of those places that they mentioned, they're going to say yes to them. But I wish that they would have had that secured at the time of the application. And I know a lot of times it can just be timing or whatever, but it would have been nice to know for sure that they were also going to go to Red Cloud, and they were also going to go to, I forget what the other community was, but very good video work samples. The goals are defined, and there's a plan to measure them. Given the nature of this project, it may be difficult to put some quantitative metrics on it, but I do wonder if there are some just kind of numbers that could be applied. This has the potential to be impactful on many communities across the state, and there are several good partnerships defined. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more clarity, though, on how the program will actually address the needs. It talks about connecting people and resources, but okay, we connect them, but then what do we do with that? How is that going to change or address the problem that this program is trying to address? I just would have liked to have seen that defined a little bit more. It was just a little fuzzy for me. I really liked how they talked about the diversity of their board and the use of community conversations and additional post-show workshops I felt a strength for following up on this program instead of just creating the show and then walking away from it. But those were my comments.
Great, thank you, Jamie. And Katrina, I'm going to let you up next.
Thank you. I just had a few brief comments. I didn't feel that the program goals were as clear as they could have been, like increasing engagement, conversations, and confidence. Understanding exactly how they were going to measure that, and exactly what that that means for the project and how that would impact the what impact that would bring to the overall project. Also, if it was going to be something that was revisited, like a one and done type of like collecting data, developing a performance, having talkbacks, but then are we going to revisit this? Is it going to be something that is a long-term to see how changes are happening in the various communities that they're engaged in? That was just something that came up for me, but other than that, that's all I had.
Thank you, Katrina. Susan, would you like to add anything? Nope. Okay. And Linda, do you have any additional comments?
Just a couple quick ones regarding the video work sample of the Turn Up Your Dream Switch. I think it was like 30 minutes, and I just would have liked to have had maybe like a short 3-minute highlight video or something to look at, because I was only able to skim through it. And then in regards to the budget, I wondered about the community fee. For each community, there's a $3,000 fee. I wondered if that's attainable for communities, and if, how the communities generally pay for that, if it's coming from the city or a single organization. It just seemed a little high. I know this program does a lot of work though, so maybe communities are happy to set aside that budget. And then I also thought that they had wonderful letters of support and good partners in each community.
All right, very good. Will you all take a moment then to update your scoring? Katrina, Linda, Susan, and Jamie. All right, thanks everyone. Our next application is the Harlem County Dam Playhouse. And Rachel, please give us an intro.
So the Harlem County Dam Playhouse is planning to use any grant funds to help produce the production of Something's Afoot. They plan on performing it at the Playhouse in July and August, but they're also planning on taking some excerpts to be performed at outreach events at local retirement communities. They're planning on having approximately 340 patrons attend from the South Central region of Nebraska.
Thank you. And Jamie, you will again lead us off with the primary review.
Sure. So this application is one that I really felt I would have liked to have seen a lot more details and information from. I would have liked to have seen more explanation of the organization and its production history. I know that it's been around for a while, but I wish that they would have talked about that in regards to the quality of their programming. I had a concern. They described the show as not as complex as previously produced shows. But I wish they would have put that in a little more context, because personally knowing this show, having directed and been in this show at several theaters, this is a really hard show from a technical standpoint. And so I was concerned that they said it wasn't complex. So yeah, the set is what's the challenge on this show, in case you've never seen this show. The set murders everyone. It's a fun show, but the set is the character that does all the killing. The work samples, I really would have liked to have seen some video of some of their past work. The photo montages or photo collage of past shows just didn't do a lot for me. And then I would really encourage the applicant to update their work samples. The one was from a story about storm damage in 2014. And I was like, why are we showing that? That was almost a decade ago as one of your work sample supporting materials. We'd like to see additional ways of measuring artistic success of the production aside from just reading what people post on social media about the show. Is there a way that they could also address the economic impact the organization has on its community? It's mentioned a little bit in the community outreach impact section, but I just would like to have seen it mentioned in their goals as well. It's a rural area, and they could mention how far away it is for someone to travel to see live theater. That would have helped strengthen the context of the fact that they are serving an area of the state that doesn't have a lot of live performance opportunities. The letter of support from the village does, but the applicant themselves really, I felt, could have highlighted that a little more. And then also, given the tourism at Harlan County Reservoir, there's really the potential of a lot of marketing there to the people who are at the reservoir doing, for their summer vacations or there for the weekend or whatever. And that just really isn't addressed at all. Like, how do they reach the out of town people who are just there for the weekend, but might want to come into the air conditioning at the end of a long day on the lake and enjoy a show? I do like the outreach to the retirement homes in the area, though. I think that's a good segment to be reaching. So those were my overall comments.
All right, very good, Jamie. And Susan, you are up next with the secondary review.
Thank you. It was also a bit of a challenge for me to describe and comment on the artistic quality of this proposal. I feel like the work samples, right, didn't really give much indication of the quality of performance that the theater might be capable of. I would agree with Jamie. The explanation of the damage done to the theater is irrelevant to the quality of artistry. The collage of images can be helpful. It gives me an idea of the quality of costuming and set design, perhaps, but also maybe it'd be good to include, if you were going to use just a collage of pictures, maybe the process and show some of the set production, how you're designing that, the rehearsals and all of that. But I really do feel like, as unfortunate as it may be, having, providing a video of a production, a little clip, does really give the reviewer a lot more to absorb and to think about. So I would suggest maybe working on developing those work samples. The artist bio was another a little bit of a concern. I think she's very well qualified to do the work, but it seems kind of trivial that I'd even mention this, but having like an artist bio in the first person is different from some of the others, and it almost I think doing it in the third person maybe suggests that there's a community that values the work that you do and sees that. And so I would just think about maybe developing the writing in the artist bio and really stressing some more of the strengths of the individual. I think there's probably a lot there that could be added to what she does and the experiences that she's had. So I'd like to see that be built up a little bit. And then the other part of the rubric about how this project and the artists are important to the community, I don't doubt that at all. I think there's a lot of statements through in the application that talk about just how valuable this is. And one of the things that I could see with this theater is that it felt a little bit like this is kind of a hub of the community. And I love how they use this abandoned schoolhouse and it becomes kind of this wonderful venue, and that this play is a really strong community builder in the region. It's kind of like a fixture for the community's cultural engagement. So I really did like that. I thought the budget was strong with most of the funding going to the production of this. The goals were fine. They were very clear and quantitative, and kind of demonstrate that they're going to be concerned about how the taxpayers' money is being spent. I would like to see, again, something a little bit more challenging. There's one play, it's done, it's very kind of short run. And I think it would be good to see something maybe that goes a little bit beyond entertainment value. It was written that, that this was a fun play that and will provide some much needed joy. And I think joy is a very important thing for the arts to bring to us, but I think it can also bring a whole lot more, and strengthening that, maybe how it helps the community engage with each other, or bringing people together for something other than entertainment, I think would be good to explain in the project. And then one question I had with this was that, this is it's a great opportunity for a rural community to have access to theater, and to include the community in art making, in theater production. There's an emphasis on the elderly and outreach to them due to the high population of elders. So including that in the demographics was good, because we can see that you're studying who is in the community and how can you bring this to them. The community partnership lists potential locations for outreach, but then the box was checked no under education and outreach. So I'm not sure what was planned other than the production and taking it to some nursing homes. Was there more than that? I'm sorry, not just nursing homes, but residences for elders, and also people with different abilities. So I think there were some good opportunities there, but I wasn't sure that was really clarified. And I think the audience from this, drawing from several surrounding communities, is good. And I really felt that the letters of support were nice as well.
All right. Thank you, Susan. And Linda, do you have any additional comments?
No, I think everything was very well covered.
Thank you. And Katrina, how about you? No more?
No, thank you.
All right. Okay. And I think we are up to a good break time for a bit. Does that sound okay, Rachel? Good break in the day. And so you can go ahead and complete your scoring. And it is 11:17. And I'm going to say, let's reconvene. Rachel, does 11:25 sound okay? So it's a little easier, hard time to come back, fixed time. Okay, we will reconvene, take a break, reconvene at 11:25. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. As soon as Susan joins us, we'll get started. We're ready for our final approach to the finish line, and you all are doing a great job with your thoughtful comments. Very, very helpful, and both suggestions that are coming through. I think it's going to be very helpful for this group and how they move forward, as well as today's review. So Rachel, I'll let you get started on our next introduction, which is Hot Shops Art Foundation.
So this project is for arts programming for special needs individuals and support staff that happens 1 to 2 times a month. The program is called Hot Shops Snap, and they are held on Monday mornings at 10 a.m. and are booked by organizations that serve the selected communities. They're offered at a low cost to the organizations and happen inside the event space at Hot Shops. Each program involves discussions and customization based off the needs and the goals of each group.
Thank you. And Susan, you will begin as our primary reviewer.
Yes, I thought this project was a really great project, and it was communicated well through the application. The artistic quality seems high to me. I think the Hot Shops is a great organization within the community, and it's an incredibly stimulating and engaging environment for arts education to take place. I think the focus on education for people with disabilities is a great focus for the project. Involving these working artists. These are people who have studios at the Hot Shops, so they are committed to their art practice and working professional working artists. So I think it's a great way to use the funding to pay artists for their expertise and for their teaching, and also have it go to benefit members of the community. I thought the work samples were great. It gave excellent visualization to the types of interaction that occurs between the participants and the artists as well, very closely working together. And I think I always appreciate seeing when professionals and learners are working together at the same time, and those learners have an opportunity to benefit from professionals' experiences. I thought for the planning and evaluation, the director of the Hot Shops is an experienced person as an arts administrator. So I think managing this project, they have a short history of having done it before. But I also like to see how they've researched some of this and been able to kind of think about what the needs are. There's a project history of studying the value of reading as a tool for creativity for children with disabilities. So it was interesting to read about that and how that was influencing what they're doing. I thought their survey methods, the questions that they chose were good. I like that they even had a midpoint evaluation so they could measure where they are and see if they needed to pivot or change something. So the plan seemed well thought out to me. I thought the request seemed very small, but that was going entirely to pay the artists, and maybe even a little bit left over to pay for the materials for the project. The outreach and engagement, they mentioned that they had a lot of different organizations. Some of them they still are seeking to work with. I did appreciate that that they mentioned that they have identified that this is something that's in high demand. There's lots of organizations that want this kind of programming. And so they are responding to that. They did seem to have some already strong established partnerships with organizations that have a huge emphasis on increasing the quality of life for people with disabilities, QLI, OLLI Web, HFS. So I think they already have some really good partners who will benefit from the programming as well, and that the artists will. I think that this kind of work and education can be beneficial to everyone, and it kind of has a therapeutic qualities, which something that everyone can enjoy and appreciate. So I think maybe emphasizing a little bit more of the ways that this has impacted people and how they have seen maybe other practices like this have had a positive outcome would be good to see. But I also thought that their letters of support were wonderful too. That's all I have.
Thank you, Susan. And Linda is our secondary reviewer.
Thank you. Scroll up to the top here. All right, I think this is a really great project. Hot Shops is a really unique space here in Omaha, and I can definitely see how these workshops would be really helpful for the residents that are coming to the space. I did have a little bit of a concern and a recommendation to the applicant about using inclusive language. The term special or special needs is not appropriate according to multiple sources, including the National Disability Authority, who states that special isn't acceptable because it's a pretty patronizing term. And I think that there are a lot of resources out there that you can look to help you build that vocabulary for yourself and for your program. And so one that I would really point you to is actually on the Nebraska Arts Council's website. In their accessibility page, I think it's called Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. They have a link to the Americans for the Arts language bank on terms that you can use and how to really talk about diverse groups. And so there's a whole section, a disability status section that actually brings you even further to the ADA National Network and really talks about more appropriate person first language and emphasizing people's abilities rather than their limitations. And so I would really just recommend the applicant to look at some of those resources and reconsider naming this program. Furthermore, I think that it's really, really great that they are involving artists that have studios in Hot Shops. I was curious about the additional 3 artists they talked about wanting to select. How do they plan to select or invite those artists to create workshops? And are those artists trained to work with individuals with disabilities or people that have different needs? And I wondered if the partners have any say in building the curriculum. I think the artistic merit is really strong. I liked the work samples that were shared and I appreciated those. In the planning and evaluation section, I thought they had good goals and evaluation methods. That midterm review, I think, was very helpful to see. And then I think the budget was very modest. It was balanced. I'm glad the fee is very reasonable for participants. And I think it was a very accessible plan for those groups that are coming in to be able to afford these great workshops. In the outreach and engagement section, I think there were minimal outreach efforts. It seems to be more of a reactive program rather than a proactive. And what I mean by that is they seem to notice these groups coming through and wanting to provide a program for them, which is really, really great. But now that they have this program, I'd just like to know what outreach efforts they plan to do to involve and invite more groups. I think that it's very clear, very, very clear that this project supports underserved audiences, that being individuals with disabilities. But I think that the way in which those individuals might be involved in the planning isn't clear in the application. And I think that, kind of going back to my initial concern about the name of the program, if individuals or some of those organizations were involved, they might have raised a red flag about using the term special needs. So I was just kind of curious if you had any conversations with your partners, QLI or Ollie Webb, got any feedback from them on how to approach your target audience in a more appropriate way. And that is all I had.
Thank you, Linda. Jamie, any additional comments?
No, nothing that hasn't already been addressed.
Thank you. Katrina?
Thank you.
All right. Everyone then can take a moment to update your scoring. Give me a sign when you've done that. Jamie, Katrina, all of you. Great. Got it. Thank you. All right. We'll move on to the next application, which is the Little Red Hen Theater. And tell us about this, Rachel.
So this application is for a portion of the 2022 season, which is entitled Be a Part of Our World, which will reach an estimated 2,500 people in Northeast Nebraska. This includes theatrical productions of Disney's The Little Mermaid and review A Little Red Hen Christmas, our special education project, Let's Create, which is devised theater experience and musical performers on their main street, which is called Wakefield Markets, that are presented in partnership with the Economic Development Office.
Thank you, Rachel. And Katrina, will you please lead us off with the primary review?
Sure. So overall, I was really impressed with the work that's happening with the Little Red Hen Theater at all levels. I felt like there was a wide range of performers of varying age ranges and skill levels, which I thought was great. As well, there was good outreach and connection to more than the expectation of more than 800 individuals participating in these performances. I do think that developing performers in smaller ensembles and skill levels is an interesting way to develop new talent and to increase the engagement in the community. The Let's Create program sounds innovative and engaging also for different skill levels in a way to get people involved that may be a little apprehensive to try out new things without that fear of needing to actually perform. I appreciated the work samples and then calling out how they addressed performances during the pandemic, as it demonstrates flexibility and nimbleness. And if there were, universe forbid, an uptick, that it feels like they would have the skills and the blueprint to be able to adjust and pivot if needed. Under the planning and evaluation section, I really appreciated the thoroughness of the project goals and evaluation metrics and how they were laid out very succinctly and linearly. And that to me demonstrated a clear and focused approach to addressing the overall outcomes of the performance season. The budget looked really good. The letters of support were also strong. And then under outreach and engagement, I really also appreciated that the outreaches for both audience members and performers kind of happening at the same time. Drawing in a broad pool, I think, can help people, again, be brave and try out new things, and seeing that they can engage in both a direct and indirect way. I also like that the planned activities weren't limited to the Little Mermaid performance, but really leverage other community engagement opportunities such as the Wakefield markets and local schools and churches. In the budget, the narrative stated that they have general operating support, which really helps with the overall sustainability of the organization and allows the theater to focus on its mission work and raising funds for the individual performances that they will undertake. I know it was addressed in the application, but I did still wonder how, with the changing demographics in the community, I wondered how the theater is planning to expand its engagement efforts with Spanish-speaking households. I saw that there's some translation that's happening with the marketing material and whatnot, and that they were basically asking the kids to be the messengers, which isn't a sustainable practice. And so just wondering in the future what that's going to look like. And then also was just curious if there were fees to participate in classes in the theater, or if there were pay what you can nights for those that may have limited or restricted discretionary budgets.
Thank you, Katrina. And Jamie, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah. So yeah, overall, I thought very clearly defined and diverse lineup of programs and partnerships from this application. And I really appreciated a good description of the organization itself and the fact that they are taking steps to focus on higher production values and expanding their reach. This is definitely an organization that I've been impressed with watching its growth over the last several years. They've really improved themselves in a number of ways. The budget looks reasonable for an organization and its community. I like that they're able to measure that 30% of their audience comes from outside of the county. I think that will really help with their marketing efforts to be able to kind of look at their impact and look at where they should be reaching out to. And I really appreciate the discussion of the community's demographic growing pains, as they put it, or as I put it, I don't know. 16 grant applications. Sometimes these things all start to blend together, I'll be honest. But I appreciate that they address that, and ticket prices are reasonable, well thought out, and very detailed promotional plan. And like Katrina said, I like the fact that they addressed the need for like the Spanish translation of materials and their awareness of the need to increase participation in that community. So those were what I had.
Okay, very good, Jamie. And Susan, do you have any additional comments at this point?
Yeah, I would just also like to mention that I was pleased to see that they addressed the Spanish-speaking community and wanting to expand outreach there as well. One thing that I would maybe advise going forward with future applications is to consider ways that you could explain how you might not just translate materials from maybe one particular cultural standpoint to make that accessible to Spanish-speaking communities, but actually invite that culture and that community to kind of have agency over the presentation. Sometimes it can seem like trying to reach, especially with other languages, trying to kind of bring a little bit of assimilation there, rather than trying to bring and give that stage to a new culture that can then share that with the community that's there as well. So I would like to see how they might increase that in the future. And I thought overall, I really like that they addressed that, and they have, seems like they're, the artists, people working there have a really great view to that.
Thank you, Susan. And Linda, any comments?
I think everything was well covered. I would just like to say kudos. I really enjoyed the goals and evaluation section, how each goal was spelled out, and there was evaluation criteria very specific to each goal. I appreciated that.
Thank you, Linda. You may all take a moment to complete your scoring. Linda, Jamie, Katrina, Susan, thank you. And Rachel will start us off with an introduction to the Loft Community Theater.
So this application is to help pay the guest artists, who will be the musical director, choreographer, costume designer, musicians, and lighting designer for the summer production of Legally Blonde, the musical. Also included in this production are the royalty fees, set materials, props, etc. The musical will take place at the Loft Community Theater, which is in Manly, Nebraska, during July. They're expecting approximately 4,000 people from southeastern Nebraska to attend the production.
All right. And Linda, you will start us out with the primary review.
Thank you. Artistic quality, I think overall was strong. There was a good description of the play provided. And I think that there was a strong case made as to why the loft is very important to this community. I thought the photos that were provided as a work sample were very striking, but I would have liked to seen a video clip. I think when it comes to plays or musicals, videos are really strong work samples, so I would just recommend that for next time. I think there were really strong artist bios provided for the musical director, choreographer, and costume designer, and why those individuals were important to the community. But I would have liked to have known a little bit more about the cast selection process, and maybe even a bio or two of past artists that have participated, just to get an idea of who some of the artists have been, since they haven't selected anyone yet. In the planning and evaluation section, I would have liked to have known a little bit more about Jen and Ken, I believe are their names, as administrators, and how those two are involved in the project. Regarding their goals, I think that attracting more patrons is a really important goal, especially during these times. But I would have liked to have known if they have any goals for the project, for the play itself, any maybe artistic goals, any outreach goals, just a little bit more specifics would have been helpful. And I think more information about how they evaluate audience feedback would have been appreciated as well. In the timeline, I think more information about pre-planning and post-evaluation would have been helpful. Even for the applicant themselves, I think timelines are very useful tools for the applicant. And so to make sure you get that pre-planning, post-evaluation in there as reminders to yourself. I think the budget was clear, but it did seem to be pretty heavy on corporate sponsorships on the income side. And I thought the royalty fee was a very large portion of the budget. Would have liked to seen a little bit more of it, maybe for artist payments, or artist payments being increased maybe. And, you know, since it was so heavy on corporate sponsorships, if they did choose to pay artists more than maybe they could go after a couple more grants to help support that extra expense. Outreach and engagement comments. I really enjoyed learning about the history of the loft. However, I would have liked to know a little bit more specifically about how Legally Blonde was selected as your play this year, how it's responsive to community needs. And maybe it's as simple as just entertainment factor, which is okay, but that wasn't stated, and nor was it evaluated. I think a varied promotion plan is provided. Didn't really have any recommendations for that. And the loft certainly feels a need to serve the underserved rural area of Manly. Regarding their community partners, I think that they were pretty heavy on leaning on their corporate sponsors as their community partners. But I was curious if there's any programming partners, educational partners, partners that help you reach the actors that you want to bring in for the summer. Anything like that would have been more helpful. And regarding that, when it came to the letter of support, I really enjoyed reading the email from the community sponsor, but maybe a letter from a patron or an artist that has been a part of the program in the past could have told us a little bit more about this program, and I think would have been helpful overall. And yes, I think that was it. That was all I had for that one. Thank you.
Okay, very good, Linda. Thank you. And Katrina, we'll hear your comments.
Thank you. Linda, I think you did a really great job of summarizing pretty much everything. But I just wanted to reiterate, like the artist bios were strong. The importance of the loft to the community is really very clear. I agree that the selection process I'd be interested, especially with the notes that folks from all over, from Weeping Water to Omaha and Lincoln and Nebraska City, that they come to either be performers or audience members. So understanding how folks, the outreach to those folks and how diversity plays into it would also be of interest to me. Under the planning and evaluation comments, I think a little bit, again, more SMART goals and metrics. I think there were some assumptions made that, increasing new talent will bring family and friends, resulting in the filling of the theater for each performance, but it's not clear exactly how. Like, are performers provided with discount tickets? Are they provided with marketing material that they then disseminate in their different communities, or just some of those things were of curiosity to me. And then in outreach and engagement, really just understanding a little bit more of how you're reaching out to some of the different communities other than social media, and getting folks to engage with the theater.
Very good, Katrina. Thank you. And Jamie, do you have any additional comments?
Just a couple of really quick ones. One, this could apply to all of the theaters who have submitted applications, and I think if we could just note this for all of them, for especially ones that didn't submit video footage of for their work samples. I think they're probably afraid because our contracts very clearly state you cannot record this, so they feel like they can't film it, but they are allowed to film up to 90 seconds of continuous material for promotional purposes. So this would qualify under that fair use clause in our contracts. So that's just something to maybe pass on to some of our other theater applicants who feel like they can't submit a video sample because they're afraid of the copyright police coming after them, that you can record in a very limited fashion for a very specific purpose. So just that little tip for future applicants. Yeah, I wanted to mention just real quick about, everything else that was mentioned, I agree with. In the budget, I did have one concern. There was nothing listed for admission as far as revenue. And so I know they're charging for tickets, but there was nothing in that income category. So I don't know if that was an oversight or what that was. And then the fees for the artists are actually, I just double checked them, and those are pretty much in line with what other organizations in this area are paying for, like the music director, choreographer, costume positions. Yep, that's all I have.
All right, thanks, Jamie. Susan, anything additional?
No, I think Katrina and Linda and Jamie covered everything very well.
Oh, great. So take a few moments to update scores. And after you give me your signal, we will move on. Linda, Jamie, Susan, Katrina. Thanks, everyone. Moving along great. And our next application is Ollie Web Center, Inc. Please introduce it to us, Rachel.
So this project is involved with the Ollie Web Center, Inc.'s Art of Imagination program, or AOI for short. The mission of the program is to empower, develop, and encourage self-expression in adults with disabilities through professional opportunities in the visual and performing arts. The classes included in this application will enhance the participants' literacy skills and help to build fluency, creativity, and self-confidence. They're planning on serving approximately 75 people through this project.
Thank you. And Katrina, will you please start us off as the primary reviewer?
Sure, thank you. So my notes have, I guess I did not save them all, so bear with me. I think that this project was very well written, and the program is very, very clear about what its goals are. I appreciated the bios that were provided, as you know, there are lots of different artists in the community, and learning about new artists is really important. And so I appreciated the thought that was put into providing such thorough demonstrations of artist qualifications. The project description was very clear. It was, I think, a little not redundant, but just being mindful of using the same language in different parts of the application. Use the real estate wisely. If there's a way that you can expand upon something that is previously said, I would recommend to do that. I appreciated that it's not just one form of art that's being explored and shared with the community. Sorry, one second. I did appreciate the context regarding the Interact Center methodology, and the goals and evaluation parameters were clear and concise. I thought that the budget was clear. This is it's a huge undertaking to provide services, period, let alone to provide such a broad range of services to this community. Sorry, just looking. In the community demographics, again, there was a lot of space that was used to describe where the activities take place, but not to necessarily describe the community of participants. In general, I do like to see kind of I do like to understand where community participants are coming from, if it's specific zip codes, if they're broad zip codes, if they are just what kind of population is being served for diversity purposes, not only in geographic diversity, but also in there's, oops.
Did we lose Katrina? It appears we've lost Katrina. Let's go ahead and Linda, maybe we'll go into your secondary review, and hopefully Katrina can get back to us quickly.
All right. So in the artistic quality section, I think that it was really clear to me that Ollie Webb believes the arts is important to their mission of serving individuals with different abilities. They created this program in 2008, and I am very impressed that they have such a strong staff that supports this program and is paid, that the staff are paid, and that there's a big budget for the Art of Imagination program. Sorry, the staff and the artist. So I think that overall, it's a very important program to the community that they serve, and they put a lot of resources behind it. I thought the work samples that were provided were really, really strong, and I enjoyed looking at them. The artist bios were great. It's clear they have qualified administrators leading this program. And I thought that their goals and evaluation methods were good. In the timeline, I would have liked to have seen staff assigned to the different tasks, just to kind of get an idea. And also it is helpful for the applicant themselves when you've got a staff assigned to your timeline. It makes it very useful. As I mentioned in the artistic section, a lot of this budget is going to pay artists and artistic directors I think I calculated over a third of the budget is going to that. And the NAC request is a very modest portion of that. And a well thought out budget with good income, varied income. In the outreach and engagement section, I think their partnership with Opera Omaha is wonderful. And it was clear that it had a strong impact on the students. And I think their letters of support were also really strong. So overall, I think this is a great application and a great project that serves a very underserved audience.
Thank you, Linda. And Susan, do you have any additional comments regarding this app?
I would say what confused me a little bit is seeing the scope of the project where the budget overall was $352,000, and then the ask was the limit that we have, $7,500. It made me question, was that overall budget the budget of the entire or operating budget of the organization? And could that be pared down to only what this project is? You also have the executive director and operations as being the administrators, but who's overseeing the day-to-day of this particular program? And so I didn't get, maybe I didn't have a clear enough understanding of what the overall mission of Ollie Webb was versus this particular program of AOI, and how maybe you could distinguish, is AOI the kind of like anchor of what Ollie Webb is, or is this one of many different things? And if that's the case, then perhaps just paring it down so that the budget is reflecting only this particular program.
Thank you. And Jamie, would you like to make any additional comments?
No, not really. Just kind of what Susan said. At first, it took me a little bit to wrap my mind around what exactly this application was, just because there's so much to it. And so just a little bit of just cutting to the chase a little bit would have been appreciated. But overall, it's a good program.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I'll give you all a few moments to update your scores. And it looks like we still don't have Susan. Thanks, Linda, Jamie, we still don't have Katrina. So Rachel, I'll just continue with leading with our secondary reviewer.
Yeah, I called her cell phone, but probably like most of us, she has it turned off, I'm assuming. So I'm going to send a quick text to see.
Okay, do you want me to pause? Do you want us to pause here? We sure can. Keep going. Susan, what do you think?
I think you should keep going.
Yeah.
Okay, we will. And
then when she gets on, you just simply review the ones through and ask if she has opinions she'd like to share.
Perfect. Well, then we will move on to the Santa Lucia Festival Committee. And Rachel, can you pause to give us a little introduction, please?
Absolutely. So this project is an Italian Sicilian community mural on Orzi's Bakery and Pizzeria. They're working with artists from within the Italian community to design and paint the mural, with guidance from Richard Harrison and help from neighborhood volunteers. They plan on having an unveiling ceremony with traditional food and music, which will allow the whole city to learn from and celebrate the Italian and Sicilian people of South Omaha. And very impressively, this will be South Omaha Mural Project's 13th public work of art.
Very nice. So Linda, we will go directly to you.
Great. Yes, I've seen a lot of these murals around town. They are wonderful. I think that the work that the I'm totally blanking on the mural's name, or sorry, the mural group's name. I think that they do a wonderful job around town. The South Omaha Mural Project, there you go. And I'm really excited to see a new mural in the Little Italy area. I think that the artists that are involved are great. Strong work samples were provided. These artists have been, I think, involved with the South Omaha Mural Project for quite a while. And it's great to see that they're still involved in growing their murals. I think that it's really clear that this is a project that involves the community throughout the whole planning process and the production of the mural. So I really appreciated that. I love that there's an artist exchange before this the mural gets started. And though I would have liked to have known more about the participant reflection part of the evaluation method. That wasn't clear to me how, sorry, my dog's getting involved. That wasn't clear to me how the participant reflections are a part of the evaluation methods. I think the planning narrative is adequate. It generally answered any questions I had about planning, but it doesn't seem very useful for the organization themselves. So I do recommend a timeline. I thought it was interesting that they stated artist pay is reduced if the grant is not fully awarded. I wonder why they might not seek sponsorships or individual funding to support the project rather than reducing the artist payments. That was kind of a red flag to me. In the outreach and engagement section, I gave them really high marks. I think this project does a lot for communities, involves the communities, and really tries to reflect the community that the mural is going to be in. I think that the tactile promotional materials seem appropriate for this project since they are trying to reach neighbors to get involved in the planning. Posting those flyers is a really great way to say, hey, we're having these community meetings, come here at this time. So those tactile materials are very appropriate. And I think the letters of support were great. I appreciated them. And overall, I don't really have any questions about this project. I think that they answered it all very well.
Thank you, Linda. Susan, any additional comments?
I just also saw the benefit of how well they engage the community in determining the content of the murals and having a voice in there. So yeah, I think also that larger body of work for the whole South Omaha Mural Project shows that there's a great commitment to having these projects completed.
Thank you, Susan. Jamie, any additional comments?
Yeah, no, just noted that they know what they're doing with these murals and been doing it for a while. So keep up the good work.
Thank you. So I will give you a moment to update your scoring. Susan, Jamie, and Linda. Very good. And our next and final application is from TBD Dance Collective. And Rachel, please give us an introduction to this application.
Absolutely. So this grant is to help pay the artists who perform and or create work during Making Space, which will be held at the Holy Family Community Center in Omaha on November 4th and 5th. The performance will feature 6 choreographic works created by 5 different choreographers. The choreographic work will be site-specific, responding to various aspects of the physical space, layout, and or architecture within the building through movement.
Okay, Thank you. And please start us out with this grant review.
Thank you. I really enjoyed reading this project. I think that first, I would just like to say the work samples provided were amazing, very striking and mesmerizing videos. And I liked that they were shorter videos so that, you know, we could just spend a few minutes seeing the great work. And they definitely proved the artistic quality of this project. I appreciate that all of the funds will be used to pay artists that are involved. That is very important and commended. I think there's a clear project description provided. There were 3 artist bios provided, but I wondered who the other 2 choreographers were going to be, because I think they said in total there was going to be 5. So maybe a mention, if they haven't selected those last 2 artists yet, how they plan to select them. In the planning and evaluation section, there were 2 admin bios provided, but it wasn't clear to me which one was leading the finances, managing the finances, and which one was more managing the project coordination. Maybe they're doing both, but that wasn't stated. They talk a little bit about wanting to reach new audiences, but they didn't say who those new audiences were. So I would have liked to have known more specifics about the new artists they're trying to reach, or whether it's new actual audiences viewing the performances. It just wasn't clear to me. The debrief meetings and surveys as evaluation methods are great. I think debrief meetings are always super important, and I'm glad you collect surveys on your performances. I think there's a clear practical project timeline provided. The budget was balanced and clear, but I would have liked to have seen more varied income. Do you anticipate having income from your ticket sales, or is it only donation based? I don't think I saw that in the budget. So please, if any other panelists did see anything about tickets, feel free to chime in. In the outreach and engagement section, I think the program is very responsive to needs of local artists. That was very clear, but I was a little more uncertain about how this program is responsive to audience needs. Oh, I do have a note here. Program is donation-based admission. So maybe I answered my own budget question. So maybe you didn't include anything about tickets in your application because you're just not sure if you'll get them. I think that you had strong promotion plans, including a press kit, postcards, radios, posters, newsletters, social media, very varied. I really enjoyed that. I would have appreciated more specific goals around involving underserved audiences. And I think that kind of goes back to who your audience is, isn't very clear. So maybe if you articulated that, you could point out some audiences that you might serve that are underserved. And I would have liked to know more about the community movement classes. Those were only briefly mentioned, but I think that those would have been really strong support for this project. And I think the letters of support were good. They were project specific, which is always great to see. And I think overall, this is a wonderful program for local artists. And I know I've enjoyed their performances before.
Very good. Thank you, Linda. Jamie, any additional thoughts from you?
Yeah, I noted the thing about in the budget about admissions as well. And then caught that they talked about donations, but there wasn't anywhere in the budget to reflect donations either. I mean, and even if it's going to be a free will donation, you should, based on past experience, be able to forecast a little bit of what that could possibly be. Otherwise, the only other thing that I had was like I wanted to know more about the neighborhood that this site-specific program was going to be taking place in. Just to kind of place it in greater context on how this project is going to serve that specific community. But that's what I had.
Thank you, Jamie. And Susan, anything else from you?
Yeah, I thought this project was a great idea. And even though it doesn't really fit the definition of the underserved community, I think dance is kind of an underserved and underviewed art form. And so I think having the bulk of this budget go to pay the dancers is important and valuable. I think I would like to see more outreach, and I know that the print material to encourage people to come is probably an effective way. But I would think, dance and movement artistry is something that we don't really offer very, very much. It's not really in our public schools. And we usually expect movement artists to have some other skill to kind of leverage that, like singing or dance or acting or writing or something. So I think that this focus is entirely on movement is really awesome. So I wanted to know a little bit more about the community movement class and how they'll draw participants to this. And I think maybe just reaching out to the private dance studios that people run throughout Omaha would be good, because those, which I know are mostly children, but there's some adults there too. So they can see how you can incorporate movement into your life as, long-term, not just, something that kind of gets looked at as something that children do on Tuesday night. But this is really a profession, and it's getting this kind of support that it needs. And I think it would be great to see people be able to observe that. That's all I have.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you very much. And that completes the reviews for the 16 applications that we had today. And so now, please finalize any changes you want to make on your scores for this particular application. And please also review your overall scores and make any, I'll give you a few minutes to make any changes that you want to. And then the scores will be tallied, and they will be listed according to rank after the scores are averaged. And at this point, I will turn it back over to Mike to carry us through the approval procedure.
All right. Thank you. And thank you all. Let you catch your breath. Give us just a few minutes to tally everything up, and then we'll ask you to come back and we'll take a look at the final scores, and hopefully Katrina will join us by that time. But why don't we, oh, there's a power outage, huh? Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed that she's able to get back in. Well, why don't you give us until 12:25, take a break, and we'll see you back here then, and we'll go from there.
Thank you.
Thank you all. We'll see you then.